This is ThinkTech Hawaii. Community matters here. Now, you've been around a long time, Peter. Hawaiian Electric's been around since, what, 1910? Did I get that right?
1870s.
When she threw the switch.
Right. Kalakaua, King Kalakaua.
Kalakaua.
First, he illuminated Iolani Palace, and then he talked to some of the Hawaii businessmen and encouraged them, and 5 of them formed the company, and they got a charter, got a license or whatever they called it from the Royal government, and they went into business. And last year was 125, this year's 126 years. You know, I've been there
since 1890.
Most days it feels like I've been there a long time, but you know, we've been a part of this community, and a vital part, I think, for a long time. And we're owned and operated. We live, you know, we're island by island. Each island is its own grid. I mean, this is. You know, that one of those banks used to say we wouldn't want to be the bank of anywhere else in the world, and then they went out and started opening branches somewhere else.
You're Hawaii's electric company.
But we are the Hawaiian Electric Company and the Maui Electric Company and the Hawaii Islands Hawaii Electric Light Company. I mean, we are as integral to this community, I think, as any institution. You know, many others have gone away, and you know, newspapers have folded, and businesses have gone, and Liberty House, you know. But we're still here, so, and we intend to be here, and we intend to keep moving, not just get old, but get new, get modern. So yeah,
in case you guys were wondering, this is ThinkTech. We like to sort of let you eavesdrop on our opening discussions, because we always like warm up beforehand, and that's Peter Rosegg. Okay, he's a spokesman for Hawaiian Electric. Smile. Okay, and that's Maria Tome, and she's my co-chair here, or I'm her co-chair, however that works.
Host.
Co-chairs. Depends who's here.
Host and chairs. Okay. And we're doing a show called Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. So this is our big energy experience this week.
Don't touch that dial.
Don't touch that dial.
You are in the right place.
And there will be a short examination after this is over. So we're going to divide the show in 2 parts. Maria told me.
Okay.
One is we're going to talk about the initiatives going on at Hawaiian Electric right now, a lot of exciting things. It's a good time. And the second, we're going to talk about storm preparation, because we have an exciting time going on in storm preparation also.
It is hurricane season, yes it is.
So why don't you lead the witness, so to speak?
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for being here, first of all.
My pleasure.
We were hoping to have a chance to talk to you previously, but there was this hurricane headed this way. So the first half is we're catching up with the news, news and updates on the electric front. So take it away. What's new?
Well, as you all remember, I'm sure, in February, Hawaiian Electric issued what we call a request for proposals, which is asking people for proposals to do renewable energy projects on Oahu, on Maui Island, and on the Big Island, a total of about 300 megawatts of renewable energy. And
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
What's the total demand in the Hawaiian Electric world?
About max 1,800, about 1,200 here, 200, 400. So
that's a 1/6 of the whole enchilada.
Yeah, it's the biggest single commitment we've made, biggest single request we've made, and we are at about 27 to 28%. We will not see a big jump this year, but next year, when some of the projects come online, we'll see another big jump. But we're still at roughly 70% dependent on fossil fuels, and we're keeping moving toward our goal of 100% by 2045 or perhaps earlier. So in February, we issued what's called an RFP. It's all technically, it says, we want a certain amount on this island, a certain amount on this island, a certain amount there was certain kinds of renewable energy and certain conditions. And in the course of doing,
you specify.
We specify.
This is the kind we want.
This is what we want. This is what we think the system can accommodate, because you can't just take everything all at once. This is what the system can accommodate. This is what we need. We don't want to have it all be solar or all be wind. We want to have some diversity. And we take that to the Public Utilities Commission and say, this is what we think. And they say, okay, go ahead. And in the course of doing that, we get a lot of proposals, and some of them don't fit in any of those categories. And when we do that, we realize there are probably more out there that we don't know about, that we haven't heard about, that we are not aware of. So we have just, in the last few weeks, issued what we call a request for information, which an RFI, to be, to put the acronym on it. And basically it says, if you have a project, we are not going to specify. If you have some kind of renewable energy project, let us know about it, because we're going to do another RFP, another request for actual concrete proposals, firm proposals. So we want to know what's out there so we can make sure the RFP that we're going to ask the Public Utilities Commission to let us do, that it's going to include as many of these projects as possible. So the RFI is out there. People still have time.
People may think that when you go out with an RFI, you're going out local, and you're addressing a local market, a local group of innovators, whatever, but that's not true. You are actually addressing the whole world, am I right?
Exactly right. Obviously, there are people who are interested, there are people with technologies who are interested in coming to Hawaii. There are people in Hawaii with land or with, circumstances that are looking around to see how they can use that in relation. So it's really open season, and we get proposals, very widely distributed. Most of them come or have some kind of Hawaii attachment. Obviously, at some point, you've got to have a place to put it. That's one of the most critical things. But yeah, it goes out nationally and internationally, and it's in publications that are read by renewable energy people all around the globe. And we keep a list of people who've, one day we get an email that says, "Are you interested in my cold fusion project?" And we say, "Well, no, not right now, but we'll put you on a list, and we'll let you know when we have openings."
But it could come in that way. You could get an email, even a text message. It doesn't matter. There's no format required. Yeah.
Not for the RFI. You got to go and fill out the form we've got online. But there are no boundaries, so to speak. In other words, we're not saying it where it has to be, or how big it is, or how small it is, or what technology. It's very wide open, and we know there's some projects out there that, for whatever reason, maybe they were too big for what we needed for Maui Island, or maybe they were in the wrong place, or whatever, or things change. As you know, in the energy world, things change month to month, and maybe something that didn't seem to make sense last February now makes more sense.
So suppose I'm switching it on cold fusion for a moment. Suppose
Yeah,
you like cold fusion.
No.
Just suppose you did.
All right, I'll work.
And you knew that somebody in Bolivia was working on cold fusion.
Yeah,
I mean, they got technology.
of course.
So would you send it to them, or would you just go publish in a sort of broad distribution?
If they happen to be on our email list, because one day 8 months ago, they sent us an email and said, "We'd like to be on your list," we'll send it to them. But basically, we depend on being in the publications and in the information sources that everybody in the renewable energy world goes to. These are online. Some of them are published magazines and newspapers. So we basically depend on that, because sooner or later in today's communication world, something that gets published on something like a Utility Dive, which is a website that's read by a lot of people. Anybody that's interested in Hawaii, all they have to do is say to Google, every time Hawaii and renewable energy comes up, send me a ping.
There's a lot of people like that.
Well,
wherever you go in the world, and you tell them from Hawaii, they say, "Wow, Hawaii, the home of clean energy. You guys are doing more than." They may be right or wrong, but that's what they think.
You've been traveling.
Yeah, I have. So it seems to me that you'd get a lot of interesting proposals, not proposals, but information, what people are doing from everywhere in the whole world.
That's what we want. We want to know, if there are people, and not just because they can do whatever they think they can do in their home country, but because they have some notion that they could do it for us here. We are, we're not good for a lot of different things. We don't have rolling rivers that are we're not gonna have hydraulic dams. We've got a little bit of run of the river on the Big Island. So, somebody sitting at the Grand Coulee Dam is not gonna say, "Oh, maybe they'd like a big dam with electric power in Oahu."
If they do say that, there's a special file for them.
Yeah, right, we got a file for that. But, so every technology is not gonna come here, every company is not gonna come here, but the amazing thing is that there are people, you would think we would have heard of everybody who was interested or who had a technology, because you think they would have emailed us already, but they haven't. So we're just trying to be out there and to say to people we're as open as
get
we
any
could possibly.
responses yet?
Oh yeah, we get responses.
Can you name one that interests
No,
you?
I can't.
Okay, well,
It's
I kind of knew you would say
yeah,
that.
I can't because it hasn't closed yet, and I haven't even asked the folks in that department. I haven't asked them what the results were, and they wouldn't tell me, and I couldn't tell you. So
Okay, there we go.
well,
What's the deadline?
it's the deadline is when is the deadline? Let me see. The deadline is September 17th. So yeah, it's close, but it's you don't have to. It's not a firm, hard proposal with all the I's crossed and the T's dotted, if you know what I mean. It's a proposal that says, we have this technology and it works in other Pacific islands, or it works in other islands, or it works here and there, and we have some land in such and such a place that could be a
So
solar
how does this
farm.
ripen? I mean, they call you on the phone after that? You call them? You have a meeting on
Well,
Skype or what? What do you do?
how it ripens is we may or may not communicate with them further and say, this is very interesting to us, can you give us some more information, or we have some questions or whatever. But the real seed, planting of the seed, if you will, since we're talking about ripening, the real planting of the seed is when we do another RFP, a request for proposals.
As opposed to an RFI.
Exactly. So at this time we say, look, we've got all these guys that responded to our RFI, and some of these look pretty good. So let's write an RFP which would fit these guys that came in on the RFI. And then we take that to the commission, and they say, well, what are you doing? And we say, well, look, we know there's some projects out there. We're just talking informally. We know there's some projects out there, and we think that this is viable. The whole RFP process is a long and it's complicated. The projects come in, they have to fit all the specifications, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So sometimes they develop into projects which will go forward, and sometimes they don't. It's far from a done deal at that point. But if we don't know put it this way, if we don't know what's out there and what the possibilities are, we can't write an RFP which will really attract those people. And when we do that, we will tell your cold fusion buddies who will say, remember you sent us some RFI information. Well, we're doing the RFP now, and if you're still interested, if you think you can meet the qualifications and specifications, which go much beyond just technical stuff. I mean, you have to be an established company, and you have to have.
Is this RFI different than other RFIs? Is it bigger, broader, more ambitious? Why?
Well, let me think about that. I think in my experience, at one point, we went out with an RFI for land in the islands that might be available for renewable energy.
I remember that one, not too long ago.
Not that long ago. I mean, the idea there was, we get these calls from people who say, we develop wind farms, or we develop solar farms, or we develop this or that, and we're looking for some land in the islands. And we could say, well, here are some, you might want to talk to these people. So that was an RFI specific to land that might be available to, and it was partly done, I think the commission said, how can you get to 100% renewables if there's no place to put them, right? So we said, well, how can we ascertain that? Well, we'll ask if there's land. And so every RFI is a little bit different. It looks for, but they're what they have in common is that they're pretty open. Because you don't have to, it's not a hard and firm proposal with all the stuff. It's the beginning.
You're
part of a
talking to the world. You're talking to
exactly.
Potential vendors.
So we're very optimistic that we'll find that there are things. We did an RFI before some years ago, and we asked for certain kinds of projects, certain kinds of solar projects on Oahu, because we had heard there were a couple out there that were interested. And we got 25 responses, as I said. Now, 2 or 3 of them weren't even on Oahu, so whoever sent them didn't really read the RFI very carefully. But we found out that there were people interested in those projects, and we found out that there were other projects. Some of them we asked for solar, some of them were for wind. And, you know, I mean, you get what you pay for in this respect. You get a whole
I wouldn't
melange.
be too impressed with somebody who didn't read the thing.
I know. They didn't get very far.
Anyway,
But
we're going to talk about community solar
yeah,
now.
the point
we're
is,
going to shift to
okay.
community solar.
Okay.
I know Maria has some burning questions on what you're doing with community solar right
Okay.
now.
Well, how's it going?
There's a burning
What a
question.
good, that's a good question.
Burning.
So,
Yeah.
you know, a few weeks ago, we published the rules and the terms for what we call subscriber organizations, and that is companies or groups of people that want to do a community solar project. And just for the 25-word review, community solar means, especially for people who can't put solar on their roof, who either don't own a roof, like I live in a condo, I don't own a roof or enough of a roof, or they're renters and they're not going to put a solar on their landlord's roof and so forth. But they want to be part of the solar revolution, the solar transformation here. So the idea is that a company or an organization or a group of people will build a solar project, not on the roof, but on someplace else on the island. And people will have a chance to put some money into that and get the credit for the electricity that produces. So people who do that become subscribers in these subscriber organizations. When that's going, when they're actually producing electricity, they'll get their bill and they'll say, you use this amount of electricity from Hawaiian Electric or Maui or Hawaii Electric Light. But you get a credit because of your participation in this solar project, which could be at the other end of the island. It could be, it has to be on your island, but it could be miles away from your home, and your home could change, but you could still
Not
be
that
part
much
of
has
the.
happened on this.
Well,
So what has changed?
What's changed is we got an incredibly strong response. We got companies or organizations that want to put this kind of a project on each island, except for Lanai, which we didn't get any responses. We got even more than the Public Utilities Commission set some limits to give this first go around a test. And we got more than we expected, more than the limits. We're looking at those projects now in what's called many of them in what's called a technical review. First thing was, do you qualify as does your company or your organization or your group or whatever, do you qualify? Are you entitled to do business in Hawaii? Yada yada. And then the second step is we've got to figure out whether these projects, just like any other project, whether it will work on our system. And that's the technical review, and that's going on right now. And we hope that before very long, at last, people, like I just described, customers who can't do solar on their roof because they don't own a roof or whatever, that they will be able to be part of this solar thing. And that's what community solar.
They got the word. They got the message. They woke up. They decided to take advantage of the initiative. They made applications.
I think many of them
And now
were just
you're-
waiting for the utility, for us to get the approval. And it wasn't overnight. It wasn't easy. It was a fairly long slog all around, and a lot of interested parties. The Ulupono and Blue Planet and Earth Justice and a lot of organizations and some of the solar companies, they all were part of getting this thing ready.
Let's assume that everybody comes around. Let's assume everybody loves this. After all, there are 18,000 condominium associations in the state of Hawaii.
Is that right?
I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
So let's assume they all want to do it right now. How will it change things if there's a big rush here?
Well, it'll change things in the people who can be accommodated under the first phase, which is not large, but is a good first run. Some people will be able to join up right away, and they will begin getting this credit on their bill. And within about a year or so, we'll go back to the commission and say, look, this was a huge success. Right? And we'll go back to them and say, this has been a huge success, and we want to do second phase, and we'll change, we'll change some of the rules and change some of the terms. And for example, if we do a second phase and Hawaiian Electric or the Hawaiian Electric companies can be developers of projects, we can't do that in the first phase, but in the second phase we might be able to, and the commission's already said, if we let you, big utility, become a creator of this community solar project, will have to go out and recruit low and middle income people. you'll have to find a way to get those people to sign up, to be able to do the, get the money, do whatever it is you have to do. So all of a sudden, a lot of people, something like 40% of the people in Honolulu at any rate are renters. And you can assume, although a few renters are rich, you can assume by and large a lot of those renters are low and middle income people. So, they're thinking, well, I could never afford this kind of thing, even if they have it. But we will be obliged, and we're more than willing, but we will go out and try to recruit people with low and middle income so they can get that line on their electric bill which says, you use this much and you would owe us this much, but you get a credit for your community solar participation, so you only owe us this much. Exactly like somebody who has solar on their roof, they get a bill and it's maybe 10 or 20 bucks because they're generating electricity on their roof. And it shouldn't be just people who own a roof, a single family home, who are by and large well-to-do. I mean, and we're not all rich by any means, but people who own a roof are by definition well enough off to own their own home and so forth, and well enough off to be, to get solar on the roof. And it should not be limited to people who are better off, or it shouldn't be deprived, people who are not better off shouldn't be deprived in a state where we're trying to get to 100% renewable energy.
Is that going to have an effect on the utility?
Well,
I mean, what effect on Hawaiian Electric?
Of course, it'll have an effect on us, and probably not the effect most people think. But the more renewable energy that's on the system, from our point of view, it's difficult to manage all that. We've got to allow for that. We always have to take renewable energy before we take any other kind of energy, any kind of oil-fired generation or anything else. So we have to balance all that, and we have to make sure the lights stay on. It creates a number of challenges, just like all the rooftop solar has created challenges.
It's a matter of adapting systems and the like.
Exactly right.
And figuring out where it's all going.
Yeah, right.
So usually around this time we take a break. But you know what? If you don't feel you need a break, we'll just go steaming right through.
Let's go right on. Let's,
steaming right through. Maria, how do you feel about that?
I'll get out of here sooner if we keep going, right?
1 minute.
No.
And how about the gentleman in the control room? Do you guys need a break? Speak up. Negative. He says negative. Okay, we're steaming right ahead.
All right.
Maria, what about preparedness?
Okay, well, I see you've updated it.
Yeah, we have a brand new energy preparedness handbook, and it's online, or how do I get this in front?
You ruined my joke, okay? Because the previous version said bring extra batteries. You have your flashlight, your radio, extra batteries. And so I have a flashlight here, and I have some extra batteries. Is this enough?
Well,
but the new one actually talks about the solar-powered and hand crank. So, good.
Yeah,
job.
It's all in here. I mean, it is a great. It's what 70 pages or something.
Yeah.
It's really a good guide. You can go online right now to HawaiianElectric.com, MauiElectric.com, HawaiiElectricLight.com, and you can download it, or you can call us up and say, "Send me one, send me some."
Good.
As long as we've got supplies in the box, we'll be glad to send them.
Now, people might not be paying attention because Hector. Let's if we can show the graphic. You might remember last week or so, there was Hurricane Hector.
There he is.
There it is.
Was headed towards us, and as you can see there, that cone of uncertainty, that just shows where the eye might go, right?
Right.
Okay, next picture, please. So it looks like Oahu was safe, but then you look at the size of these things, okay? These are large. So Hector has passed safely south of us and gone off and dissipated, and so Hector is not making us nervous anymore, but next graphic, please. But this is Lane, Tropical Storm 14E, Lane. So this was from this morning. Today's the 15th of August, for those of you watching in the future. But yeah, it's, so these things are out there. This is hurricane season. Hurricane season is June through the end of November. And I think there have been times in the past that has actually extended beyond, but we are in August, so it is time to get prepared. You don't wait until the sirens go off and then rush to the store, people. Okay.
Well, everybody will
Yeah.
be there
Yeah, right.
cleaning the
Yeah.
shelves for you.
So
I do want to point out we have this booklet, which is great, and it's got it's marked so you don't have to read every single thing before the storm comes. But there's a great home survival
good.
checklist
Okay.
that's only about I think about four pages long.
Okay,
So you
good.
don't have
Well, what are some of the things on that checklist?
But
that we
there,
should
there's
throw in?
also, I want to tell you, we'll send you one of these, which is put together, it's an emergency checklist that we put together with the departments of emergency management here. And, this is the shortest possible version, but it says 14-day supply of non-perishable foods. That is with little or no cooking requirement. Water, a minimum of 1 gallon per person per day. Flashlights or lanterns, battery, hand cranked, or solar
it's
power.
an improvement.
But you don't have, I can tell you, you don't have enough batteries.
Okay.
Maria,
yeah,
get more batteries because,
okay.
it's 11 months after Maria hit Puerto Rico, remember?
Yep.
And the last person finally got their power restored about a
Right.
week ago. It would never be that long around here,
Okay,
knock
so-
on wood, but okay, you got your hand crank.
Yeah,
All right.
so there are a bunch of different ones. Like
That's your
this
solar?
one, yeah, this is from a camping supply store.
Cool.
There is actually an emergency preparedness supply store.
Really?
right.
Yeah, I think.
Where is it?
Be Ready. There's Be Ready Hawaii. Okay, so there's Get Ready Hawaii, which is the government organization that helps put these things together, and they, a friend of mine gave us this emergency documents, because not only do you need your 14 days of supplies and water and in your house, so that you can hunker down and keep functioning, but you may need to go. You may need to leave your domicile, and so you need a ready kit. And so this is a convenient list of documents, and then you would want your backpack of some emergency stuff. So there is, so I was looking up the Get Ready Hawaii website to see the lists and checklists and whatnot. And then there's a Be Ready store that's not open on Sundays, but is open on Saturdays and whatnot. And so, if you look back at Hurricane Lane and you think about what you're doing this weekend, I would say check out your food supply, make sure you have 1 gallon per person per day. And we will have the Board of Water Supply coming in, I think, September 5th.
Oh, good.
So,
And we're having Dennis Swan come back. That's HWANG from the Sea Grant College. They have likewise a manual where they spend a certain amount of time telling you how to bolster your house up so it won't fly away.
oh, yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
cool.
That's very valuable.
Continuous load path.
Right.
Right.
It's
So you
a
attach the
engineering-
house to the walls to
Save
the
your house.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to someone on Kauai who, before Hurricane Iniki, his neighbor was out throwing ropes over the house and anchoring them. His roof stayed on, and a bunch of others in the neighborhood did not. So these things make a difference.
I don't think people realize this scenario. If you're without power, you guys think about this all the time, but
Well, we do.
and in the past, I can remember always sort of learning big lessons when there is no power. You can't assume the traffic lights work. You can't assume
the
that
roads
the
are
traffic will
free.
behave itself.
Right.
You can't assume the stores are going to be open at all.
You can't assume you could even get to the stores. I mean, the trees
Yep.
that come down block the road.
Yep.
The first job after every big storm like that is not even to restore the power. The first job is to clear the roads so that the crews can get to where the power has to be restored. I should mention the Red Cross too. The local Red Cross is very energetic in terms of you can buy kits from them, and we had a lady come because we work with them a lot, and she brought her emergency kit, and she just went thing after thing, and I was amazed. And we also had a guy come from the Meals Ready to Eat and came to talk to us, and a bunch of us. I mean, we understand what it would be like to be without power. We ordered boxes of Meals Ready to Eat, which are, unlike when I was in the service, these actually these have a chemical water thing in the bottom, and they'll actually heat your food, and they won't kill you. These Meals Ready to Eat. I mean, they're not Alan Wong's or anything like that, but they're very edible.
Yeah.
And you again, as you say, you don't think about all that until you hear something is coming, and then you drive to Costco or wherever you go, and there's not a single spot in the parking lot, and the lines are forever, and that's very discourage. Get ready. I mean,
Get ready. Get ready now.
So I have a couple of suggestions.
Great.
One is you need to know where your stuff is, because if if it is a stressful time, as it probably is, you're not going to want to try to remember what is it that I need to bring, what is it that I need to put away, and it's not just hurricanes, other things can happen too, earthquakes, tsunami, whatever. So know where it is. It's even better if you can use it. And there was, like the solar powered bank, and it's got a couple of USB chargers because, the cell phone, everybody's going to want to be charging their cell phone. So nowadays they make these devices, your hand crank radio, flashlight with a USB port.
Oh, very
and
good.
you can get this solar thing that I haven't tested it out yet, but I'm thinking if I just leave it plugged in, you get power through the micro USB, and if I use it for my
You can
devices,
charge the battery with the
it'll
hand
always
crank.
be ready. Yes, so those,
But
those are good.
The problem is whether the person at the other end will have similar equipment, because you need two parties to tango.
But we can only be prepared, within our own homes. And if everybody does that, then it makes a big difference in being able to not panic and create chaos.
In the first few hours, this radio will be the absolute
Yep.
essential thing.
Yep.
I mean, whatever happens with cell phones, with cell phone towers, whatever happens with television broadcasting, the radio will come on first. It'll be, ideally it won't go off at all, but if there is a big emergency, as we know, if you've been around long enough to go through some of these things. So having this radio built in is just really cool.
Our problem at our house is we don't always listen to the radio. The kids have their
They're always
but-
watching ThinkTech Hawaii is what it is.
No, yeah, there you go. So we don't necessarily know where the radio is. So we've started keeping the radio with the flashlights because we have them all hanging on, because if the power is out and it's nighttime, you go to get your flashlight. You also can find your radio, and so we've decided that's a good idea. Another thing is, we'd been hearing about the food bank. I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Well, you need your supply of non-perishable foods, right? Your cans of soups and stews and Spam or whatever, that you have that will keep. So what we do is every year when Food Bank comes around, I think it's April, we will take the hurricane preparedness stuff that we give thanks that we have not needed it in the previous year, and we check the expiration dates, and much of it is still good, but won't last another year, and
So
we
you
donate it
have a
to the food bank. We donate it to the food bank.
That's very good.
We get fresh stuff, and we actually keep it separate from the rest, because otherwise everybody will eat it. Right? So if you want to make sure you got 2 weeks worth of stuff, you kind of
That's a
need to
good
put it
idea.
under the stash of water. And so, you have that, and then you have your ready kit.
So Peter, in your book, you say that
Yeah.
have a 2-week supply of this, that, all
Right.
that, which suggests that in 2 weeks everything will be fine. What can you describe from the utilities point of view?
Right.
What happens in that 2 weeks?
Well, everything always depends on whether the event is something that we were able to plan for because it was coming on a cone of, we saw the maps and we knew that the storm was coming, or it's something that happens without warning, which is the earthquake or tsunami that results from that. So that's the first thing. And if it's going to be an event that we know is coming, we're going to prepare. We're going to have our trucks and our crews in place and ready. We have what we call an incident management team, which we stand up, which is devoted entirely to restoring power after the event. And even before that, we're doing an awful lot with what we call resilience, which is the ability to withstand and then restore in the event of these increasingly, regular, increasingly frequent kinds of problems. So we're putting a lot of time and effort into resilience and hardening our system. We stand up when we know something is coming. And as soon as it's over, the first thing we do is we participate in clearing the roads if necessary. And we get our crews out there to see what's necessary. And we do that as fast and as thoroughly as we possibly can. And, in any kind of an outage, our first priority is always on public health and safety. So making sure the hospitals are up and running, making sure there's power for the police and fire departments, making sure the airport, which now has its own independent power system there that can pretty much run the whole thing, so that if we need to...
A lot of that is solar, isn't it?
No, there's a multi-fuel 8 to 10 megawatt emergency system.
Some
there.
biofuel, yeah.
It can run on biofuel, but it could also, if it has to, run on jet fuel, which is kind of amazing. Because if it's going to be a protracted period and they're out of fuel, there will be jet fuel available. So it will keep the airport, which will be the first gateway for any kind of emergency relief. So, but our first priority is on the health and the hospitals, public safety, the essential government operations and things like that. And then from there, we move out further and further into the neighborhood. So we drill for this. We practice on what we call tabletop practices, or we have devoted an entire department in the last couple of years where we used to do it kind of, oh, you be the emergency guy this week and you be the emergency guy next week. We now have a full-time staff of people whose entire job is to prepare for these emergencies, and everybody in the company who is not already on the line has an assignment that they're going to go support communications, or they're going to go support these people or those people, so that the people who know how to do things can get out there.
Great.
So we have done, and we publish this and we republish this.
Where can I get this?
You can get it online. It's online at any of those. You can download it there and print it out, or you can call customer service at any of the utilities, and they will tell them you need a copy, tell them you need a few copies. They'll make sure you can get them. They're out, and they're in libraries and places like that as well, I believe. So they're out there. There's plenty of others. I mean, we're not the only game in town by far. As I said, this is a checklist we did with the emergency management folks. It's shorter and simpler, but it's still a good thing. I would advise having this booklet or a copy of this stuff somewhere. You don't have to read every word of it.
Right near those batteries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody's got an assignment this week.
Okay.
This weekend. If you don't have your 14 days of food, go get it. Make sure you got your water, a gallon per person per day. Don't forget your pets. They drink water too, and get your ready kit so that you're ready to go if you need to. And every year or so, you should probably check, because this one was, I think somebody had put this together about 4 years ago. They had actually got it as a prize, and if it sits there for 4 years, some stuff expires, but it's pretty good. So be prepared.
Well, yeah, be prepared. I mean, I think it's next year we have El Nino, but we still have the risk of substantial extreme weather this year. Climate change is happening, and we can expect this kind of climate disaster. And gee whiz, it's not a drill, it's real. And we have to be prepared for it.
Can't say that often enough, very frankly, and we all kind of slough it off. I think one of the things it says here, and it's very important, it won't be in here, but your main papers, your identity stuff, the information about your home and things like that.
Oh yeah, we actually have a graphic if you want to put it up.
Okay, this is the last thing we can do because we're way over, but go ahead.
But if you...
there it is, Ready Hawaii.
And you can pause it at this screen and print that out if you'd like.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if there is that kind of a situation where you have to leave your home and go to a shelter, we're seeing it with the fires in California. We're seeing it, all over the country in places that never expected it. Heat waves in Norway, and it's incredible. You want to have the basic information you need so that if it's an emergency and FEMA is there or the state is there and they're going to be willing to help you, you can show them who you are. You can show them what you have, and you just got to pretend that it's happening for a few minutes and think, what would happen if I had to leave the house? What would I absolutely need to prove who I am and where my home is and what I've lost? And
yeah,
things like
just
that.
to think about it.
Exactly.
Just to have a mental image of what might happen and what you would do. Thank you, Peter. Peter Rosegg.
Pleasure as always.
Maria Tome.
Maria,
thank you so much, Maria.
Very much. Always
thank
good.
you. What's next week? Quick.
Okay, next week we talk about designing your PV systems, utility scale PV systems based on lessons learned in Puerto Rico. There were some systems that escaped without much damage and others that were totally blown away, and we want to let people know that they can the developers know that they can find out how to design those systems right and install them right.
That's great.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Nice to see you.
Aloha.
Nice to see you. Aloha.